Hi everyone, can you all hear me okay? Wow, the magic. Okay, good. Well, welcome, thank you very much for coming along. We're from Historic Royal Palaces, and if people are not aware of who that is, we're the independent charity that look after six of the most amazing palaces, rather than places, but the six most amazing palaces in the world. So that is from the top, Kew Palace, Kensington Palace, Hillsborough Castle, which is in Northern Ireland, Tower of London, the Banqueting House in Whitehall, and the best one, which is Hampton Court Palace. And I should say that I'm Rachel, I'm head of Hampton Court Palace. I'm here with Catherine, who is our visitor experience officer across all six sites. And what we're going to talk today about is our new visitor engagement standard, which is called People Make Palaces. And Catherine and I have spent exactly a year developing and rolling out this new standard. And it wasn't until I was putting together these slides, because like everyone, we have the same intro slides for every talk that we do, and I always use these images, and it wasn't until I was putting them together for this presentation that I realized the big problem with these pictures at a talk called People Makes Palaces is that there's palaces, sure, but there's no people in those pictures. So not only is that false advertising, because very rarely will you come to our sites and they look like this, especially the Tower of London. You'd have to get there pretty early in the morning for it to look like that. But also we're removing the best bit, because we really do believe that people make palaces. So here is a better representation of what it really looks and feels like to visit our places. And straight away you can see that there are so many different ways that visitors can come and engage with HRP. So you could be a school kid on a school trip. You could be on one of our world famous Yeoman Warder tours at the Tower of London. You could be coming to one of our big crowd events like Poppies. You could be in a part of a community group. Or my favourite, you could be coming to the Hampton Court Music Festival. Starts next month. Limited tickets still available now. So there's lots of different ways that we can engage with people. We'd engage a diverse amount of people in a diverse amount of ways, but like lots of organisations, we are looking to increase that all the time. I'm sure this will be familiar to everybody in the room, but after the pandemic, HRP did have a deep think about our role as a UK charity, and we realised that although we are a UK charity, a very small section of society actually benefits from what we do. Like most heritage organisations, of course, we want to increase our visitor numbers. We also want to diversify our visitors, and we also want to exist better for our visitors. And so although we've been working towards that goal for quite a long time in a number of different ways, this new strategy, as it became, is our first big kind of step change in how we get to that goal. And our goal is to become a charity for everyone, to make our palaces a living resource for everyone, and we mean absolutely everyone. And this is the roadmap that we are now working to as an organisation, and it sets out how we want to reach further, mean more, and act for the future. And this covers every single thing that we do at the palaces, so from safeguarding our collections and gardens against climate change, to extending schools outreach and extending our community access programme. There's so much to talk about that, and I can't possibly do it justice. If you want to know more about the wider programme, there is information on the website. But what I wanted to do today specifically was just give you some context around the challenge that Catherine and I were set, which was, how do we take this document, which is quite high level, quite strategic, and actually quite focused on things that are online and off-site, and make it relevant for our teams that are on-site operational teams. So how do we translate this into something that makes sense for the people who are working on the floor with visitors every day? So we had a few different starting points. So one was the strategy that I just mentioned, and I'll come back to how we worked with that. But there was also different sources of inspiration. So a big one was obviously visitor feedback. Catherine here has been working on a programme of visitor journey mapping across our 6 sites, and that helps us look at each stage of the journey and understand how we're doing in those areas by listening to visitor feedback. And so we know as an organisation what we do well and where our pain points are. So the People Make Palaces is our second actual visitor engagement standard. We have had a previous version called the Royal Standard. Embarrassingly, that was our first cross-organisation standard. Until 2020, every palace was doing its own thing, which Weird, but that's true. But the Royal Standard was our first kind of cross-palace organisational standard. It has some really good, what I would call basic customer service content, and that's the last time I'll say customer service because I hate that phrase, but that is how I would describe what it was. It was, the importance of eye contact, smiling, and that is all really important basic content, but actually we want to be reaching higher, and we would hope that the people that we're going out to hire for front of house positions are kind of coming to us with those skills already, and that's why they're people. That's why they want to do the job. So we wanted this next iteration of the training to set the bar higher and really develop those skills. And so we kept a lot of the good content that was in the Royal Standard, but hopefully evolved the rest. We also started to think that something called the Royal Standard, whilst it's a catchy name for something that happens at historic royal palaces, against our new strategy, it began to feel not really as inclusive as we wanted it to be. What else was there? There was best practice. Well, that's the best part of it, is going out to things like this, going out to other sites and understanding what other teams and other places are doing really well. That's a really good part of the job. So coming back to the strategy, and you can see here all these pink lines. It's us trying to draw out from our strategy ideas that relate specifically to visitor engagement. So we needed to get a steer from this document as to what visitor engagement at HRP was going to look like, because not all styles of visitor engagement are equal, and I could do half an hour just on that. But what I'll say is, visitors are not going to see this document, right? It's on the website, sure, but they're not going to go looking for this. How do we make people feel this through the way we interact with people on the floor? How do we, scan somebody's ticket and they go away thinking, what a charity for everyone? How do we give them that? And it's a bit of a tall order. It's a difficult challenge, but this was the challenge that we had. So where the pink lines are where some of those ideas were really lending themselves to ideas around visitor engagement. So a source of joy, inspiration, surprise, and debate, removing barriers, being current, being relevant, making our stories relatable, helping people explore on their own terms. That's a really important one, and remember that one because it'll come up again. And then over on the right, our values, getting it done for people, with people, and always doing it better. Hopefully, you're about to see some of those ideas reflected and made real and tangible in People Make Palaces. People Make Palaces, sorry. So, enough talking around the process. I'm going to share with you the content of the standard, and then I'm going to hand over to Catherine to talk about how we trained our front of house teams on it across the organisation and what the results were. Now, so this is a moment where what I'm going to do is try and match my voice to things that are happening on the screen. So this is going to be the way the wheels absolutely fall off. But I thought it was cheating to just play a video of my voice, so I'm not going to do that. But let's see if this works. Okay, so our new visitor engagement standard aims high, because to get people over the walls of palaces that have been specifically designed to be intimidating, we do have to aim very high indeed. This is a standard that recognises that from a visitor engagement point of view, the power we have isn't in the majesty and grandeur of our buildings, even though they're great. It's the interactions we have with people. It's people who can turn majestic places into your spaces. It's people who can turn a good day out into a great day out. And it's people who make visitors feel like they're part of our palace community from the second they engage with us. People make palaces. And because the focus is on people, it follows that the elements that make up amazing visitor engagements are part of people as well. So let's look at our visitor engagement person in a bit more detail. The hand of our example person represents all the doing that has to be done as part of visitor engagement. And we call this empathetic efficiency, because there are times when the palaces are just really, really busy and staff might be scanning tickets or getting cars parked, but we're doing it all knowing that each individual experience is really important to our visitors. Our visitors have made something that is important to them, their day out, their memories. They have made that vulnerable to our actions. And so we need to honour that trust by being really good at our individual roles and playing our part, but also being empathetic to the needs of each person. The heart represents passion, or specifically respecting all passions. And this, hopefully you'll recognise, comes directly from our new strategy. It focuses us on respecting all motivations equally. As you've seen, our visitors could be history buffs, wedding guests, fans of a band, flower lovers, kids looking to blow off steam, 1,000 other different things. And no one motivation is more important to us than another. So We don't roll our eyes when somebody says they came because of Bridgerton. Instead, we use our knowledge and our respect to make that experience even better. The mouth obviously signifies communication, and this is where we pick up on the two-way process that the for people, with people part of our values represents. And we call this impactful interactions because it highlights the reciprocal nature of that engagement. How we behave has an impact on visitors, and obviously vice versa. And actually, if you zoom out from that, hopefully a lot of you will know that what you get out of being on the front line, it depends a lot on what you put into it. Engagements are a balance of listening and speaking, of giving and receiving, and sometimes just as important as sharing some facts with the visitor is letting them share some facts with you. Engagement isn't something we're doing to visitors, it's something we're doing with them. And because the focus is on that quality of the engagement and not necessarily the facts that you're sharing, it's interactions that can happen with everybody. Now, what's this? So this one is a light bulb, and this signifies insider knowledge. This is how we truly turn our visitors from recipients of our service to participants in our engagement, really making them feel like they're part of our community. So we encourage staff to share their own experiences of what it's like to work for HRP, stories from the palaces, from the gardens, from the estates, to literally open doors and literally show people secret spaces. And always, of course, considering conservation, security and safety, making every visitor feel like they've had a sneak peek behind the curtain. And finally, we aim to give each visitor a crowning moment. And that isn't to say that the rest of these don't do that, but this is about empowering our frontline teams to really take charge. So we give them crowning moments cards that give our visitors treats. It might be a free coffee, it might be a repeat visit, free parking, just depends what palace you're at. But it's something that makes the day a little bit better, and it's up to our teams to know when to bring them out, whether it's service recovery or you've just found out it's someone's birthday. It's up to them because they know our visitors best. And I think there is one more element of People Makes Palaces, because the important part of our values was always doing it better, and that is a really big part of what our front of house teams do. They are consistently flagging issues, sharing ideas and pushing us to be always delivering better for our visitors. So hopefully a foot will appear, there we go, and we call that always moving forward. So there it is, the 6 elements of a new visitor engagement standard that helps us get under the skin of what it means to give every visitor a world-class visitor experience. And I think I timed that to perfection, didn't I? Yeah. So I'm going to hand over to Catherine now, and Catherine's going to tell you how we took that idea and rolled it out across the whole organisation.
Thank you very much. There we go. Yes, so we have developed our new visitor engagement standard. We've got our 6 elements, but now we needed to take it to all 6 of our sites and our various front of house teams. As Rachel said, this is our second go at a cross palaces engagement standard. So we took it a little slower and really considered it as we went through. So as we were training, we started with a very small workshop. We just brought in a few of our team leaders, our line managers, just to work with them on the style of training that we wanted to move forward with, and I'll talk more about that in a moment. Once we got that settled, we moved on to piloting it. So it's actually been a year since we started this, and we started at the best, Hampton Court. Part of the reason to pilot this was to see how the training went, but it was also to roll out that crowning moment scheme and see how the visitors were engaging with it. Once we knew we were on to a winner, we moved on to rolling it out. So over this winter, we have trained all of our front of house teams. Now, looking at that welcoming everyone element, we also then looked more broadly at our definition of front of house. So it's not just for us, the people who were in the rooms or in the shops. We also looked at those who had visitor engagement as a large part of what they did. So we also included our security teams, our gardens teams, our volunteers teams, and even though they are third-party partners, we included our catering teams and our audio guide teams, because they are delivering the service to the visitors, and the visitors can't tell that they don't work directly for us. So they get the same training, the same standard, and then it is consistent across all of our front of house teams. So that has been rolled out over this winter. And then the challenge for this summer is then to roll it out across all of HRP. A lot of our teams, although they technically sit back of house, they are dealing with visitors on a daily basis. So our membership teams, our contact centre teams, our live engagement, public engagement teams, But we're a heritage organisation, so everyone is in the business of visitor engagement. So everyone is part of this new engagement. So it is rolling out across all our sites and across all our staff. So I mentioned settling on what kind of style we wanted to go for with our training. We came with a fairly engaging and lively, it's People Makes Palaces. We want the people to connect with it. So it starts, they get context much like you just had from Rachel, and then the rest of the session is really active and engaging. So each element has an activity to go with it. These are two of my favourite. Respect All Passions, that one, it's essentially a little icebreaker, but it starts getting them thinking about the different ways that even though they work in the same space, the different ways the staff interpret those spaces, and then they can relate that directly to how all the different visitors relate to the spaces. And then empathetic efficiency, that one's quite fun. It's an infinite zoom picture. So I give them scrambled up pictures and then they try and put themselves in order, and it causes chaos and mayhem. But then it gets linked directly into the element itself. So that's then the second slides, is that nailing down the different elements and exactly pulling out exactly what we mean by those. We found that the mix of the kind of active learning is quite good, as different learning styles, but also it allows the teams to see how they can then immediately take this out into their roles that they do already. Some of the elements they're doing already, but it shows them how we want to step change and just bring it that little bit extra level above. We've found that it's had a really great response. One there, I very much liked the examples that came with the concepts being explained. As I say, different learning styles of different people, some more auditory, some more kinesthetic. So a fully engaged training style allow people to connect with it immediately. And then crowning moments is kind of the winner. So there's a couple in there. The crowning moments cards are especially a great idea. It feels personal and achievable. And then I like the idea of people making palaces and how front of house staff can make such a difference. Because crowning moments is sort of our secret weapon when we've been rolling this out. It's physical things that they can immediately take away and immediately put into practice out on the floor with our visitors. So as Rachel said, they are just these little gold cards, they're business card size, they can have them in their pocket. And it shows them that we're putting our money where our mouth is. When we say we want to empower them to take ownership of the visitor journey and own that visitor engagement, we've given them the cards to immediately go out and do it. The beauty of the scheme is that they don't need a manager to come and authorize it. They are written, taken as read, that they are authorized. And it flows from those engagements that they're already having with the visitors. It's a natural kind of extension of an already excellent conversation to then put the cherry on top with a piece of birthday cake, or if someone says it's their 50th anniversary. Beautiful thing to do. Equally, in service recovery, it's that one-on-one conversation. They feel like they've made a personal connection and that they've been able to do it themselves rather than waiting for authorization. So it's really helped the buy-in from our teams across the sites of the People Makes Palaces, that we are doing this consistently across all the sites and that they have the ownership of it rather than it being a scheme for managers. All of People Makes Palaces doesn't sit in isolation. So a big part of this is consistency. We've got 6 very diverse sites, and as Rachel said, they were all doing their own thing for a long time. So we finally pulled them together with Royal Standard and then this one. So we have launched internally the Visitor Experience Academy. So this sits on our intranet and is a central resource hub for all of our front of house teams. It's there for anyone to access, but it sits there as a collation of all the bits and pieces. So there's 4 elements to it. The first one, People Makes Palaces, is everything we've just been talking about. It's all those elements of just your standard visitor experience training, all the things that you'd be training your teams on, queue management, resilience, crowd management, and it's got all of the People Make Palaces stuff in there as well. They've got the full version, but they've also got little videos, so they can just refresh themselves in 5 minutes on a break or something. They don't have to go through the whole training every time. They can just dip in and go, I can't quite remember what that element was, and refresh themselves. But that is for everyone who deals with visitor engagement. The second element, creating experiences, that delves a little bit deeper. As Rachel said, the Yeoman Water Tours, I'm sure nearly everyone here has at least been on one or seen the YouTube videos. They have had a long program of development. We have talks and tours at all our other sites, but they've grown up a little bit more organically. So we've developed talks and tours training to help that consistency, to ensure that we're hitting the marks that we want to hit with every tour that we give, with every talk. So that sits in that slightly more involved element. Our third one, access and inclusion, is what it says on the tin. It's there to give our teams confidence that when we are welcoming everybody, they have the confidence to engage with everybody. There's details of various schemes, such as the Sunflower Scheme, and little short videos, again, so that they can just refresh themselves on a topic, such as engaging with those in the deaf community. So they can just have a little reassurance and a little confidence and refresh their skills, and it won't take a whole training session. It's just little bite-sized pieces. But equally, there's a list of resources for those much longer ones. The final one there, that's leadership. So that's twofold. First half is just pulling together all of those forms and policies that all managers need that are flung far across the intranet. So now they're in one space that everyone can find them. But it's the second half which is more important. It's a centre for continual professional development. So in there we have a huge amount of resources for learning your management style, improving your management skills, dealing with difficult conversations. We've just launched an apprenticeship scheme for leadership, and we're going to add LinkedIn Learning in there. This is for those who are currently managers, but equally anyone who wants to become a manager, because this is accessible to anybody in our organisation. So it's there for them. But by putting it all in one place in the Visitor Experience Academy, People Make Palaces doesn't sit in isolation, and then all of the training is there across all the sites, so that each one can just pull down the resources they need. They can add their own little palace spin on top, but they've got the resources they need so that they are teaching the core consistently across everything. As you saw from those testimonials, it's gone down really well with all of our staff. They've embraced the Crowning Moments cards. They love the idea of giving out free cake and free coffee. But we've also had a wonderful reaction from our visitors, which I'm going to hand back to Rachel to tell you more about.
Okay. Yes, so as Catherine said, our training programme seemed to roll out really well, but obviously the proof of the pudding is in the visitor feedback. So here's a little bit of a selection of feedback from a selection of palaces, and actually if you can read that, the bottom one is actually from one of our security officers at Hampton Court, who emailed me to tell me that he'd just given away his first crowning moment card to an unhappy but light-hearted family, unable to find parking for 3 hours. I'm not sure I would be light-hearted after 3 hours of looking for parking. He said they visit 2 or 3 times a year. I explained the car park situation, which for context is too small, and asked if it would make their day to get free parking next time, to which they lit up, and I gave them the free car parking card. So the team have the tools to turn around situations that are going to be complaints and turn them into positive experiences. And for teams like our security team, who really the majority of the feedback they get is related to car parking, which you can imagine tends to be more on the negative side than the positive side, although there have been a couple. But that's a really, really powerful tool for them. And if anything, it means even more when they're used as a sort of unexpected treat. So the third comment there is from a visitor who spoke to a host in the Great Hall at Hampton Court really passionately about Tudor history and the different podcasts that she listens to. And the host later found her again to give her a ticket to come back and bring a friend. So absolutely made her day. So going back to that surprise and joy that we mentioned in our strategy. Now, my favourite bit of feedback needs a little bit more context. So before I show it to you, let me just give you the background of it. This was written to us by the father of a boy who had ASD, and he came into the palace and had a bad moment because he accidentally dropped his mobile phone down the back of some historic panelling. And Jake, the boy, was really upset about this, and so they asked 2 of our palace hosts to help. And after a bit of sort of playing around with coat hangers and doing things that probably our building curators don't need to know about. They did manage to retrieve the phone, and then they then gave Jake and his dad a crowning moment card for a hot drink so they could go and relax in the cafe before continuing the visit. So that's the background. So Jake's dad wrote, these guys were our heroes. Not once did they imply that we wouldn't get it back or that they would give up. They reassured Jake, said it had happened before and the phone had been returned. They kept calm and cool the whole time. To then give Jake a voucher for a hot drink was just perfect. We went straight to have the drink as he was so distressed he needed time to calm down before we could carry on enjoying all the wonders of Hampton Court Palace. So a huge thank you from me and my boys. Looking to get Jake an annual membership so it can go hand in hand with his history level, as his experience was so good after the hiccup. I know if he were to get in a pickle again, the staff would be just as reassuring and he would know to go to them for help. These guys need to get a pat on the back. Thanks for saving our day. So a really lovely letter. I mean, I hate to point out the commercial upside of that, but obviously we did sell a membership there as well, and I'm being quite crass, but it's a lovely love story, and if we can reassure people that who maybe have some sort of a worry about coming to the palaces, if we can reassure those people that the palaces are for them to the point where they're continuing to come back, then that is obviously excellent work from those two guys who, I feel like I should shout, Dan and James were their names, so I should give them a shout out. I'm going to finish off by flipping back to this slide and pointing you to the second comment, which is about a lovely security officer at Kensington Palace called Angela, where the visitor has very helpfully written, there are many priceless objects in the palace, but for us, Angela was a true gem. Guys, it's almost as if people make palaces. Thank you so much for listening. I think we're done, but we'd be very happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Can I just say as well, this was Catherine's first ever talk, and you wouldn't have been able to tell. So,
thank you very much, and well done. Any questions from anyone? I have one over here. Yes. Oh, I got it.
Hi, so you mentioned that you rolled out this to not just like the room guides, but to the third parties, including kind of the volunteer part of it. I am the volunteer manager for a small local museum. Did you find there was any difference in rolling out training for paid members of staff versus voluntary members of staff about how it was taken up?
Yes. So it has kind of been palace by palace, depending on their roles within those. But with the volunteers at Hampton Court Palace, they have embraced it so enthusiastically. They've really cherished the chance to be as involved with that as any other section of the teams. Those at Tower, it's a little bit more reluctant to take it on, but if it's part of embracing the People Makes Palaces, I full-heartedly am like, yes, let them join in, absolutely.
I would say as well, we have a couple of different formats for the training. So we do have a sort of online video, which is more than what I gave you, but has lots of different examples. And we also have the face-to-face ones that Catherine mentioned. And what that means is, if somebody starts, on their own, for example, in their front-facing role, they don't have to wait until the next training session. They can watch all the content. Whereas if we have a group of seasonal staff starting, then we can do the face-to-face as part of their induction. So we're just trying to give ourselves flexibility with the different formats so that we can reach everybody.
Great, thank you. Any more questions? Yes, Mike's coming over to you.
Hello, thank you for that wonderful talk. I wanted to find out whether you'd worked out the value, the sort of cost to you of the Crowning Moments cards. It's an excellent idea. I just wonder if if they get overly used or what.
Yeah, so we the only cost, well, I'm speaking about Hampton Court in particular here. So we have 4 types at Hampton Court. We've got a revisit, free parking, free cake and free coffee. And so the parking and the revisit doesn't really cost us anything, so that's fine. We have a third-party caterer, so we do get invoiced. So essentially, we set up a situation where the caterer will then will keep all the cards and then invoice us at the end of the month. And we did insist on getting a staff discount for it, but it's always products that are not packaged, so it's something where we can get a discount on it, a hot drink or a cake. We did, of course, cost it, and I don't remember what the cost was now.
No,
it was worth it.
Yeah, I mean, I would say it's a fairly minimal cost, and it's a drop in the ocean. If you look at the percentage coming back against the visitors coming through our doors, it's less than 1%. But for those drops, it makes the whole huge difference, as you saw from there. So it is a little cost, but I think it's a well worth one.
Yeah.
Great, we have time for a few more. Any more questions? Yep, over there.
Thank you so much for your talk. Hi, I'm Nell from V&A South Kensington. And just curious, you spoke a little bit about you didn't like the phrase customer, or it was a customer service.
Yeah.
I know you don't have half an hour, but just I'd be curious to hear what your sort of initial thoughts or feelings are about that phrase.
I mean, it's a personal hatred, and I don't know why I'm quite so vehement about it, but I think a customer service to me just feels super 80s and super retail, and our visitors are not customers. We're not just trying to sell them a product. They are visiting us, and there's a whole hour to be done on what we call visitors, but I call them visitors. And engagement, I think engagement really speaks to that sort of two-way. There are types of customer service where service is appropriate. So if you're talking about a really high-end hotel like the Dorchester Group, where it is that you want people to feel like they're, king for a day, and there is that element of service. And that is one style, and it works well in that particular scenario. I think with our new strategy and what we're trying to do, we didn't want there to be that kind of hierarchy. We want people to feel involved. And so that sort of reciprocal nature of the engagement rather than service is why I sort of prefer that. But I'm very militant about it. It's absolutely banned from HRP. Thank you.
Great. Any more questions? Yep.
Thank you very much for the talk. So I just wanted to ask, how do you record the visitor experience data after you've given out these crowning moments cards? Do you follow up with a survey or form, or do you record this through increased footfall, for example?
Yeah, so we have, each palace has a monthly feedback meeting where we look at 4 different types of data. So we do collect lots of data across the whole organisation, but for monitoring visitor experience, we look at 4 particular types. So we do visitor surveys, anecdotal feedback that comes from our staff just verbally, TripAdvisor, sort of social media, Google type stuff, and there's another one, contact center, so CRM data. And we chose those 4 because they've all got strengths and weaknesses, but together they give you a really good picture. And so we sort of have a dashboard every month where we can monitor what's happening, collect verbatim comments, and sort of, see how we're doing essentially. And each palace has a different version of that. Is there anything I've not said there?
No, I think it was, yeah.
Okay.
All right, one more question. We'll do 2.
Hi, I just wanted to ask how the training is going with the teams that aren't front of house. How much buy-in or pushback have you had from them?
A mixed reaction, but because we've just done a lot of work on the strategy, it has helped kind of carry the momentum through. Those teams who are very used to already engaging with visitors have embraced it, wholeheartedly. The back of house teams that don't have visitors as sort of their central focus, they're getting there. They can see that we're pushing it beyond just the kind of the smiles and the basics, and we're pushing it a little bit further, so they're buying it as well. We've got the crowning moments, which they think is fantastic, and they're already all looking for little ways that they can do it within their roles as well, which is fantastic.
And actually what Catherine does, which is brilliant, is that she uses these as like a bribe. So teams really like these, and they say, can we get some in our department? And she'll be like, yeah, sure, but you've got to do the People Make Palaces training before you get it. So that's been quite a good tool.
And there's just one over here.
I just wanted to ask, it was really interesting to see your kind of online hub that you have for visitor experience. I wanted to ask about how you kind of manage access to that, and also whether you build time in for front of house staff to kind of go back to that if they do want a refresher.
Yeah, it's a good question. So it's kind of a tool it's a resource for front of house staff, but also for the managers of front of house teams. So, for example, we have 6 palaces. We'll be doing 6 different inductions for seasonal staff at some point. There's no point in every operations manager having to reinvent the wheel when it comes to induction. So they can just go straight into this resource library. It is just a resource library, and pick out the presentations, tweak them if they need to, but it's just a central hub for all of those resources. So it's a mix of being able to go in and grab a training plan or some slides, and then also being able to explore some of the other resources that are there as front of house staff.
Great. If there's no more questions, I think please join me in giving them a big hand. It was a great presentation. Thank you.